Welcome to The Mything Link, a podcast where we explore the undercurrent of mythology that links our modern culture to our ancient stories.
We're your hosts, Dr. Caitlinn
and Dr. Randall,
two professional mythologists who share a passion for music,
a proclivity for all things spooky,
and an insatiable curiosity for the world around us.
The show will cover worldwide mythology, and season 1 will focus on ancient Greek stories,
giving listeners everything they need to know to understand the new Netflix series Kaos.
And most likely several things that they don't. Join us as we talk, laugh, and sing this fall for The Mything Link season 1.
Kaos
Theory. You can link that up. It's appropriately chaotic. This whole situation is appropriately chaotic. Maybe that's it. It's a lesson in chaos. Perfect.
It's a lesson in Kaos Theory.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Oh, hey.
Yo, I don't know about you, but I am ready to be done with season 1.
I could talk about Greek mythology till the day I die and never get bored of it. So
I guess what I'm saying is I'm tired of focusing on stories that center sexual assault, and I'm excited to start talking about different creatures from around the world.
Yes. I could also talk about that till the day that I die very happily. Yeah, I'm really tired of, well, part of it is that we've chosen to focus on chaos, right? And that focuses on all the major players in Greek mythology instead of a lot of the fun stories, like Arachne.
The weird side characters that we like.
Yes, exactly. For me, all the things that I love about Greek mythology aren't the things that revolve around sexual assault.
Right. And I think this was a really good way for us to get started and have a really limited cast of characters to choose from and a really specific focus, which is a helpful framework for the two of us. Shocking.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was thinking about that the other day. I am glad we chose chaos as a launching point, because I think, at least for me, and I have an inkling of a feeling for you, it would have been really easy for us to get lost in the metaverse and just end up 3 years down the road. What are we doing?
Yeah, still talking about Greek mythology.
When there's a lot of other beautiful mythologies that are also equally as intriguing.
Absolutely. And I'm excited, looking forward for being able to broaden our cultural scope.
It's really easy for me to get hyperfixated on Greco-Roman antiquity and Christianity. Shock.
Certainly.
However, there are a ton of other mythologies that I love, and I'm really excited to be able to talk about.
So being challenged to engage this deeply with Greek mythology, especially these stories like Zeus and Hera and Poseidon, and even Prometheus, honestly, really, I traditionally wouldn't gravitate towards most of these characters if I have the option to research Greek mythology. So this was a really fun, challenging exercise in being kind of confronted with some of these stories a little bit more, and having just the opportunity to do this and the structure through which to do it. I mean, the research we've had to do for this season is more comprehensive than the research that I had to do for our PhD for Greek and Roman studies. Just the breadth of material that we looked at over the last, when did we start this? September?
I think so.
I think we got started on it right away.
Yeah, we did. We had the idea, and then a week later we were recording.
Yeah.
So we have no chill.
Oh my gosh. But that's it. We got to follow the paths
your heart
that arise, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about too, I do tend to gravitate to stories that include sexual assault because it makes me feel seen. It feels really relevant, right? It feels really important to my own story to have these other stories as framework to psychologically work through these things. And I think part of the psychological function of mythology is to help us confront our own stories and contexts, right? So it's been helpful for me to do that, but also it's not only reminded me of all the papers that I wrote about Greek mythology and me too, it's also reminded me of the fact that not all Greek mythology is that negative, right? I'm thinking particularly about how Ovid's telling of the Caeneus myth was actually a reflection on how barbaric Ovid thought dead naming and treating people who identify as other genders was. And that was a good reminder for me too, reminding me why I love Greek mythology, at the same time reminding me why it's so relevant still, in that it shows the shadow of humans.
That's a really good point, because I think oftentimes when we're talking about some of these stories and topics, I have a tendency to try to avoid some of these topics because they're triggering to me. And a lot of these stories, they don't make me feel seen because they are from the cultural context of the abuser. And like, I think it's not the abuse itself or reading about the abuse itself or the assault that's triggering for me. It's seeing like the societal and community response to it, and knowing that other humans have been in our shoes and have been dealing with this for thousands of years, and we still haven't gotten any better at dealing with it. And that idea specifically is really triggering for me, to see how little progress we've made as a society, because culture is so cyclical and it keeps like going back to the beginning, and we're seeing this right now politically.
It's true. It's a really
Yeah,
stark reminder of, at least the way that I've been thinking about it, it's a really stark reminder of how Greco-Roman antiquity is the foundation of our modern political society. And there are certainly things about Greco-Roman antiquity that I wish had carried through till now, particularly their acceptance of butt stuff and homosexuality, right? Like there's
general homosexual
general
foolishness.
exactly. But there's other things, like we were talking about Zeus and comparing Zeus to Donald Trump. And that is, yeah, you're right. It's really triggering and it's really disheartening. And it's a really hard tension to hold between, like, wow, I feel solidarity with the women in these stories, and also, holy shit, nothing has fucking changed. And we're all carrying this trauma with us, in ourselves, communally, and historically. Every vagina owner is carrying that in them on like threefold, fourfold.
Wait,
I
how
think,
many folds did you say your vagina has?
do you really want to know? How many folds does a vagina have?
Um, my answer is 0 because it's a vulva.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the correction on
I know,
anatomy.
and I knew it was incorrect when I was saying the joke, but I was like, the joke won't land if I say vulva because you said vagina.
Ugh.
Sorry. Um,
This is staying in.
that's what she said. So that's the thing. Like when we talk about the magic of mythology, it is magical for me to feel like I'm connected to people from thousands of years ago. But that magic really quickly dissipates when I realize that our social structures haven't changed. And I still identify as exactly like my intersectionality is exactly the same as the victims in these stories. And like we haven't done anything. Right. Like we're continuing to shove those problems in the margins and say like they're not worthy of mainstream attention. And we like to think that we live in some sort of progressive society, that at least our society is slowly inching forward, even though it goes back in cycles. But this is such an immediate reminder. And I think it's extra triggering now, too, because I'm a mother and I have a daughter and I'm engaging with these stories in entirely new ways. And my ability to engage in these kinds of traumatic stories has definitely changed since becoming a parent, and the roller coaster of emotions that that has brought into my life. So the mythology hasn't changed, I have, and my understanding of the world has. And I mean, gosh, this season has given me so many opportunities to engage emotionally with stories that I never would have without it. Like, I've never been brought to tears by the story of Icarus before. And it's so moving now. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
I'm
Ooh, I
so
just got
excited.
chills.
We got to do this
I
together.
know, me too.
And we still get to do this
We
together.
do. Historically, when I've read and studied these myths, it's usually from a place of anger. You know, like I'm reading the stories of Zeus feeling rage, just utter rage. But talking with you about these things in a safe place has made me confront parts of myself and parts of these stories that I really didn't want to. It's easy for me to be like, solidarity, but actually feeling that solidarity and the frustration that things haven't changed, and like actually allowing myself to feel that instead of remaining in my morally gray academic,
Oh, I'm familiar with that
bubble.
space.
It's been really, really challenging, but also really helpful at the same time for me on like a psychological level. For me, there's a lot tied up in all of this.
Absolutely. And I think that's what really draws me to like trickster stories, because they're really subverting all societal expectations and they don't fit in boundaries. And I have so often felt like a boundary crosser myself in the positive and the negative ways that that can mean. And those stories, I feel like they help me feel represented. Like reading about Prometheus and his moral compass not being aligned with who's in power, rather with like what he thinks is right. That felt really validating for me and felt like representation I wasn't expecting to get from Prometheus, a guy I just know is associated with good technology and human technological advancement. That was such an unexpected piece for me. And then also he has a little brother who like is described exactly like my little brother, and we feel like very much the Prometheus and Epimetheus combo. And that's what I mean about this season, like giving me some of these unexpected gifts, like definitely brand new ways for me to look at stories that I completely thought that I knew. And again, the stories themselves haven't changed, but I have, and that's why it's so fun to come back and be able to engage with these things. And I get to do it with you, and now we get to spend all this time together.
I know, I
It's
fucking love it.
amazing. It's like literally the best thing I could think of, except if we were in person, that would be the best thing I could think of.
That would be dangerous for the rest of the world, I
It would
think.
be dangerous for everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Doesn't mean I don't want it.
Same. Yeah, as you said that, I was thinking particularly of Medusa, how I deeply resonate with that story because it feels like my own. And like we were just saying, I tend to hyperfixate on the bad parts of these stories because it feels nice to be seen. I don't like necessarily the way that I phrased that, but it is like a selfish kind of solidarity to know that other people have gone through these things, even if I want it to be different. But along that same line, I was surprised because Dionysus and trickster figures are never people that I've studied historically or found myself like super interested in. And I felt really surprised, and I'm like smiling thinking about it.
I see you. I love this.
Reading about Dionysus and just resonating with this boundary crossing figure who encompasses the full range of mania to depression to like violence. He's complicated. I was shocked in myself at how much I resonated with Dionysus and was wondering why I've never really researched him before, but then thought to myself, like, this was how it was supposed to be, right? I was supposed to be in this moment, realizing these things about myself and Dionysus with Randall and finding a new way to relate to Greek mythology that wasn't one of rage and wasn't one where I walked away feeling gross about myself. Or it was really beautiful to me to find that kind of magic, the magic of mythology. It was a good reminder for me because I tend to be a really pessimistic, negative person and only focus on the bad things about most of Greek mythology. It's like part of my like fatal attraction to it,
I
right?
know. Sometimes you're this guy.
I am that. I mean, that's pretty much what I look like right now. That's why I turned my light off. I don't think I worded that very eloquently, but
No, I think you did. And it was lovely.
so anyway, Greek mythology triggering.
Say it again.
Also,
Say it again. Mythology. What'd you say?
I hate you.
I'm just looking at our list of episodes we did this season, and I'm trying to decide like what my favorite was. And it's hard for me to pick a favorite. So what if we do like a word association game? I name the episode and you tell me like the first thing that comes to mind about
This is
that
going to
episode.
be really dangerous, but I'm ready, I
Okay.
think.
Let's start from the most recent and we'll work our way back. Poseidon.
Horse penis.
I love this game. Okay, the Amazons.
I don't like this game anymore.
Oh, uh-oh.
You do it. The Amazons.
Okay, I'll take this one. One boob. Okay, the underworld.
I'm not good at word association, I've just decided in this moment.
Okay, then maybe you throw it at me.
The underworld.
Helen.
Oh,
I
sweet,
had so much
precious
fun
baby.
recording with her.
I know, I really love her so much.
It was so nice. I don't think I've ever like sat down with her for that long, just in such a like an intimate setting. We usually hang out in group settings, so it was like so nice to get to know her better.
I love her so much.
That was so lovely.
It was really lovely.
I've been listening to her Greek mythology stories for kids. My daughter loves it so much. She loves it. And like hearing Helen doing the storytelling and singing the songs, like I'm just like sitting there weeping, trying not to let anybody see because it's really complicated why I'm weeping.
She's so wise and she's so tender, but she's also not a pushover at the same time. Like she is really
she has a really
firm
soft
and
but firm energy, like gentle but serious.
for me, it's like really lovely and good for my soul to be around because I'm like angry and unhinged most of the time. And then there's Helen.
Yeah, Helen's like ethereal and like you know what? She's the mom from Casper.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's the kind of energy
absolutely.
she has.
Sure.
She's like ethereal, but
Mm.
like strong and direct. Okay. Okay, the Furies.
Blood.
Leathery wings of a bat.
Leathery. I love it.
They take to the sky on the leathery wings of a bat.
But
All right. The Minotaur.
I thought immediately, this is not going to surprise you, of the conversation we had about his if he had a horse wiener or a man wiener, or if he had an extra large man wiener.
Okay, so out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes so far, 2 associations for you have specifically been horse wiener. I just like to state that for the record. I was going to say beastiality, and then I was going to say our fun conversation with Megan.
She's like really fun to listen to, just like her voice in general and the way she enunciates things. She was explaining a fresco and like how frescoes are made and the art, and she was pointing out like the curvature of the hair and how it was like representative of like the movement of the sea and sea creatures, and I had never noticed that before. I'm not a big art person, so it was fun to hear from somebody who's really passionate about those different aspects of history.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I love hearing Dr. Megan talk about art. Like, she describes it in ways that are really new, even though they're obvious. Like, once she says it, it's like, oh yeah, like it's obviously doing that, but it's like in a really digestible way. And
it's almost as artistic as whatever she's explaining.
Yes.
Because when I go back and I look at those things on my own, I'm like, boring, you know? But if she was explaining it to me, I'd be like, oh, so interesting.
Yeah, she's a great teacher. So if you haven't listened to the Minotaur episode, highly recommend it. Persephone and Hades.
The integration of the shadow self.
I was going to go with pegging. I'm so sorry. That was a genuine spit take, folks.
Literally, there's water on the wall. I just spit take so hard.
I'm sorry.
Did we ever decide if Hades was like a full dominant top or a power bottom?
I think we landed on power bottom.
I do think so as well. Power bottom makes sense.
But I think also it's possible that Hades is a switch.
I could see that too. I learned a new word for switch called verse in one of my books.
Oh, mhm.
VERS.
Like versatile. Randall's etymology corner.
It means somebody who's a switch, but in terms of anal.
Specifically anal
That is
only.
what the internet is telling me. So it particularly applies to two penis owners doing butt stuff. A bottom is the receiver, a top is the giver, and verse is someone who does both applied to anal sex.
That makes me feel like a non-penis owner wearing a strap-on would still count.
Well, I saw this on a website called Gay Speak. Maybe.
Well, don't you think strap-ons are also a little gay?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a little gay because prostate is in there.
I say it's gay because I feel like it belongs to the queer community, and
Mm,
a lot of cis, straight, traditional people would consider that like outside the realm
sure.
of traditional missionary straight heteronormative sex.
I think that's very valid.
And so, yeah, I guess I don't mean to say it's just a gay thing, but that it like is a
Mm,
tool of the queer community,
I get behind that.
right? It's
Yeah.
like for sexually non-conforming
Mm-hmm.
folks,
Sure.
and I would consider that part of the queer community.
What's the next one?
Great. Our Greek mythology Q&A. I remember reading the questions and talking to my friend about it,
Mm.
and she gave me a bunch of questions, and I didn't even know she listened to the podcast, and that was like such a nice
Oh,
feeling for me.
that's so sweet.
So that's what I remember about that episode.
I love that.
Medusa.
I guess when I think of Medusa and what we talked about specifically, I think of how, there's a level of female autonomy in that story, right? Like you could interpret it as Athena giving Medusa a gift that will make it so that she'll never have to experience that kind of power imbalance again. And it kind of just like we were talking about earlier, it's like a sad commentary on the reality of things for vagina owners and how little things have changed. But I also think it speaks to the resilience of people who identify as women
Mm-hmm.
and how beautiful the community can be between them and how we can step up to support each other in really beautiful ways, even amidst tragedy.
Yes to everything you said. And my association with this episode is of me being wrong and stating pretty confidently that she was the only snake-haired goddess, and then like immediately being proven wrong, and then being proven wrong several times. And not only with that, but with other things as well. And I love that this podcast is like giving me the opportunity to prove myself wrong, but also putting myself out there. And we always say like we want to move about life with the confidence of a mediocre white man, and like I don't want to be a mediocre white man, but historically speaking, I've really let the fear of not being 100% factually correct like stop me from speaking and contributing to the conversation, because I want to be so sure that I'm not saying something wrong. And knowing that we're doing this like every week, it gives me the opportunity to make declarations and then to confidently say like, hey, I proved myself wrong, or this research I confirmed like solidifies my stance. It's given me the opportunity to do research at that level continuously in a cyclical way, and like be delighted when I've proven myself wrong, and not let it lead me into some sort of shame spiral or imposter syndrome or whatever.
I really love that. And as you were speaking, it made me think we joke about wanting to move about with the confidence of a mediocre white man, but the reality is we don't. I don't want to
Right.
move.
We don't want that.
It is really freeing to be able to look back and say, I was wrong. And it's really freeing to be able to say, I don't know.
Hmm.
And like claim that instead of just like bullshitting,
Hmm.
because you know what? We don't need to bullshit that we know everything to be fucking good at what we do and to know what we know. And we know a
100%.
fucking shit ton. It's a good reminder for me too. Also a good reminder that we know more than we know, right?
Right. And our expertise is in the way that mythology functions. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that we have memorized every piece of every myth we've
Sure.
ever come across in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting more and more comfortable with
Yeah.
that being the case.
Yeah, me too. And picking up things and learning them for the first time.
I feel like at the end of this season now I can like confidently say that I have some like experience and expertise on ancient Greek and Roman mythology. And I feel like even after getting a PhD in mythology, and we only took 2 classes on Greek and Roman mythology, and we didn't have to dive into it at this level. And we focused a lot more on like their social and cultural aspects, I'd say, than like a lot of the stories themselves or the figures themselves, right? I mean, the first text we started with was Oedipus, which arguably is very important in the context of studying ancient Greece, but is not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Greek mythology. So this kind of gave me the opportunity to know more about Zeus and Hera. And
Yeah, I really love that perspective. I think, Greek mythology was what originally sent me down this whole pathway to be where I am right now. And when I think back on all the Greek mythology that I've studied in school, where I think about what I love about learning and teaching, it's the ability to like sit down and go through a text and analyze it and not necessarily have it memorized, but to dissect all the things that could possibly be true at the same time and reflect on the ways that it's relevant to now. And I really feel like we've been able to hyper fixate on the parts of studying mythology that I really love, which
mm,
is historical criticism and how mythology is shaped by the world around it and the function that it serves in that time period or now. And it's been really fun to be able to hyperfixate with you on something that I really like and have always wanted to deep dive into, but have never really had the academic opportunity to do so beyond what I wrote in my dissertation.
right. And with like our specific brand of neurodiversity, it's helpful to have a structure and a deadline and all of these things. And could I have picked up a Greek mythology book at any point in my life and done additional research? Sure. But like this has been just such a fun opportunity
I
for
really
sure.
love doing this with you.
Me too. This is amazing. Let's keep doing it.
Okay,
Okay.
sold.
All right. Deal. Orpheus and Eurydice.
I think of that moment when he turns around and looks at her and she just that's the only word she says the whole story. She's silent for the entire thing. And
Hmm.
I think about the way we talked about that as maybe like a really freeing moment for her. Or I don't know if I necessarily have a positive to say about this story because it's the first thing I think of is that Eurydice didn't have a voice in this story about music. And
Hmm.
it's really like really tragic.
Yeah. When I think of their names, Orpheus and Eurydice, I have been in such like a, a Broadway state of mind, and my child has gotten really into musicals, and I saw Hadestown in November, and the music is so good and they say their names in the song so many times, and Eurydice is such a strong vocal character in that story. And in the introduction, when Orpheus meets Eurydice, when she tells him her name, she says, "I'm Eurydice," and he responds, "That name is like a melody." And like that's the little couplet that plays in my head every time I hear Eurydice's name now. So like I immediately start thinking about the music from Hadestown, but also it makes me think about Dr. Deborah Crossland, who wrote her book, The Quiet Part Out Loud, based on the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. And before she had started writing that book, I had heard the names before, but it was not a myth that was within my line of vision at all. And so I associated with good friends in my mythology program and discovery of new myths as an adult. And now this wonderful Broadway musical that my child also loves. It's great. The whole thing is great. All right. What is next? Hera. Do you want me to go first? What I got
Man.
out of the Hera episode was more like feeling representation for inherited generational trauma and like cyclical trauma. And the tragedy is in knowing how easy it could be to make a different decision, but that would require you to be a different person. And I felt like really seen by that interpretation of Hera. And she's historically been a character I haven't connected with at all on a personal level. She seemed nice in Disney's Hercules, and then I grew up and learned more about her and was like, she's the worst. She's punishing other women who are victims themselves. And then this episode challenged me and allowed us to zoom out and see the cultural and familial context in which she grew up and developed, and how there's no way for her to possibly have a better story than the one that she has. And that's the tragedy of it all. And perhaps why she's such an important figure in Greek mythology. And I had never, until we sat and were actively discussing it, like those thoughts had never come into my head before. And I have a whole new perspective on Hera, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. The first thing I thought of when you said hero was it's a story of the abused becoming the abuser because she was set up for failure from the beginning. All she knows is abuse by the patriarchy, and that's the only framework that she has for interacting with other people. And it's really tragic, and it's really difficult to sift through. She didn't have community, right? There was so much she didn't have, and the only thing I can think of is how tragic it is and how difficult it is to hold the tension between she didn't deserve, and it's true, she didn't deserve anything that happened to her, but the people that she took it out on didn't deserve that either.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure this is the same conclusion we came to in the episode, but it helps me feel seen as serving as a warning of what will happen if I give in to these patriarchal structures and trying to find power in that way. Or I'd say, like, women in the US, we've all been raised to be in competition with each other in this way. And Hera serves as a great negative example for me on what my life could look like if I isolate and detach from my community, and a little bit maybe of who I was at the end of my marriage, isolated from community and in a terrible emotional situation.
That was me my freshman year of college. Alone, reactionary,
Reactionary. Yep. 100%. That's the
very
word.
angry. I was one mouthy motherfucker as a kid, and it's
Was.
because, oh, okay, in a different way. I was like fucking mean.
The
And now
same.
I'm like, oh God, I don't want to react that way. Even if
Mhm.
I like instinctively want to react that way, I don't really want to do it, you know?
Yes. Yes. 100%. And this idea that our immediate reaction is what we've been raised to do, and our second thought is like who we are now. I think like Hera is a warning tale of what happens when you don't have that second piece of it and haven't done the work.
It also makes me think how our society works, in particular, Western, heteronormative, Christian based, white privileged, all the intersectionalities insert here, how deeply tied to violence anger has become because of the individualism and capitalism around us. And it makes it really hard, I think, especially for women, to know how to actually react to anger in a way that's not patriarchal violence. Like, we actively have to learn how to positively associate with our anger and express it, because the framework that we've been taught is one of violence, when in reality anger isn't bad. It's not bad to feel mad, it's not mad to react, it's not, but it's complicated when all we know of anger is violence, and so we're taught we're not allowed to feel it.
Well, speaking of anger, Zeus.
Fuck Zeus.
Same. Fuck Zeus.
Fuck Zeus.
If you're interested in your own Fuck Zeus sticker, you can find the link to purchase one in our show notes.
Hell yeah, they're great.
Dionysus.
Penis.
Double penis. Prometheus.
Fire from the gods.
Trickster. I feel like we
Trickster.
already talked about Prometheus. But yeah, Prometheus makes me feel seen. And in Chaos, I like how they portrayed him as not being heteronormative and
Me too.
pushing the boundaries in that way. And I
It's
appreciate
very
that
fitting
Chaos
for a trickster.
totally. And it makes me appreciate that Chaos gave Prometheus such a central role because I would have never researched further into Prometheus. And the fact that we did that as the first episode, it really set us up for success.
I think so too. I love all the layers of Prometheus.
The layers of
The layers of
Prometheus.
Prometheus. Are we done?
Unless we want to talk about our first episode. I'd say our first episode is a really good and important one. It's really an important foundation to like all of our conversations because we use mythology in such a specific way that I think the average everyday person doesn't associate that word in that way. So I think it was a good opportunity to get all that out there. Well, I think it has been an awesome season 1.
I'm kind of sad that it's closing, but I'm excited to move on to our next topic of conversation.
It doesn't feel like anything's ending, but it feels more like we're just opening a new box.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to do that. And I'm really excited to get into folklore. I
know
think
you
that
are.
is helping me. I love talking about folklore and I love seeing humanity's attempt at explaining why things are the way they are. And a lot of folktales fit into that. And of course, they're included in the broader conversation of mythology, which is why we're doing them. But they're really fun and special to me. And you're really fun and special to me.
You're really fun and special to me.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
we love y'all. Thank you for joining us on season 1 of The Mything Link.
Chaos Theory.
Chaos Theory. Chaos.
Chaos Theory.
And we very much hope you'll join us for season 2, Monsters and Cryptids and Beasts.
Oh my.
Yeah, we hope you join us for season 2, where we're going to get to zoom out even further and go all around the world and engage in these different mythological creatures from around the world and different traditions. And I'm saying around the world a lot. And we're going to have some really great guests on talking about their specific cultural folklore. So we hope you come with us.
Please join us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hurry back. Hurry back. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to The Mything Link. You can find the reference list in the show notes for further research. The Mything Link is researched and recorded by Drs. Randall Oliate and Caitlin Curry. Edited by Dr. Caitlin Curry. With music by Mark Austin Kelton. The Mything Link is produced by Fernweh Collective Incorporated, a humanities nonprofit based in San Diego, California. As a small nonprofit, we appreciate if you have the time to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help grow our audience. For more information on our organization, head over to fernwehcollective.org. Thanks for listening.
I have Coke stuck in my throat.
Oh, God. Diet Coke,
All right.
for the record.
For the
everybody.
record. That's the only kind of Coke there is.
I meant not cocaine.
Oh, I see.